walk past junk every day. What if I told you that trash could transform your garden into something magical? Not with expensive tools, not with fancy materials, just with what you already have. This is Revive Nature, where we turn throwaways into showpieces. In this video, we dive into DIY trash garden ideas you've probably never seen before. Every idea is time-stamped. Skip to what inspires you. And if you have questions or thoughts, the comment section is yours. Before we start, maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content is a real story, and a small family with a dream. Every like, every share, every click on that red button, it means more than you know. You're not just supporting a channel. You're helping a dream stay alive. In the heart of a tiny English-style backyard, where space is cherished and every corner carries a whisper of charm, a humble oil drum finds a second life. No longer destined for the scrapyard, it now breathes beauty into the border of a flower-filled garden, transformed into a canvas of pastel dreams. With soft strokes of chalky blue and a weathered touch of mint, it stands like a quiet guardian between the stone path and the blooming tapestry of fall. Each drum, half with care and softened by brush, becomes a cradle for color. Marigolds spill out like tiny suns, defying the cooler air with their golden fire. Asters stretch skyward, offering shades of dusk in purple and lavender. Chrysanthemums gather in clusters, full and rich, their petals fluttering in the breeze like a final song before winter's hush. It's here, along the edge of a tiny path in a front yard barely a meter wide, that nature and discarded metal shake hands in quiet agreement. What was once scrap now anchors the rhythm of the season. It doesn't shout, it charms. The painted drums curve with purpose, guiding the eye like punctuation marks in a floral sentence, while bees hum their approval, dipping from bloom to bloom. Behind it all, a white picket fence embraces the scene, tangled in ivy and early fall roses. A rusty watering can leans in the corner like a forgotten friend, while a wooden bench, faded by sun and memory, waits for the next teacup or tired soul. In this garden, beauty is not bought, it is built. Not from perfection, but from pieces. Not from wealth, but from whimsy. The drum doesn't pretend to be a designer pot. It proudly wears its past beneath its fresh coat of paint, reminding the world that even in the smallest yards, with the humblest materials, magic can grow. And so the garden lives, not just as a space, but as a story. A story of rescue, of reuse, of radiant color rising from the quiet shell of what once was. In the narrow space where a fence meets soil, something unexpected dances in the sunlight. Totem poles not carved from wood, but shaped from the world's discarded plastic. Here, the ordinary is elevated. Old soda bottles, milk jugs, and colored containers, once tossed aside, rise again, stacked and spun into garden sentinels of joy. Each bottle bears a story. One was once filled with water for a jogger's thirst. Another held soap in someone's laundry room. Now, under the magic of garden hands and a splash of paint, they become petals and wings, feathers and fins. Cut with care, shaped by flame or scissors, and painted in hues that mirror the blooms below, turquoise like the sky, coral like autumn roses, sunflower yellow as bright as the marigolds. These upcycled totems do more than decorate. They guide the eye upward in a space often forgotten. Against the back fence of a tiny yard or along the border of a slim patio path, they add rhythm to the garden, vertical poetry in a world of horizontal lines. Between each pole, Japanese anemones sway like dancers, and asters peek between bottle wings. The fence, once plain, is now a gallery. Children are drawn to them, wide-eyed and curious. Visitors pause to touch the spirals and textures, not believing they're plastic. And at dusk, when tiny lights begin to glow between the cracks of recycled layers, the whole garden shifts into magic. The once flat fence becomes a tapestry of light, of color, of reclaimed wonder. In this patch of earth, where every inch matters, vertical design becomes the painter's brush. And the trash of yesterday becomes the delight of today. It's not just a totem. It's a reminder, beauty doesn't always come in new packaging. It can be cut, shaped, repainted, and reborn. And it can shine even brighter in the smallest, most overlooked places. Beneath the gentle shade of a pergola wrapped in golden vines, an old clay jug rests quietly in the soil, its side broken, its story unfinished. But in the hands of a garden dreamer, its journey begins again, not as pottery for water, but as a portal to an enchanted world. The crack in the jug is no flaw, it is a doorway. Inside, moss carpets the base like a velvet floor. A pebble path winds through miniature ferns and thyme, leading to a tiny wooden door set into the curve of the clay. Above it, a bottle-cap roof shelters the imagined residents of this fairy refuge. There are no fairies in sight, but the sparkle of possibility lingers in the air like pollen. This is the soul of a garden where nothing is wasted. Not space. Not objects. Not dreams. Surrounding the jug, chrysanthemums bloom in russet and gold. Marigolds laugh in orange flares, and the gentle sway of Japanese anemone petals softens the light. A fallen leaf rests on the jug's rim, as if it too stopped by to admire the view. Above, the pergola hums with quiet life. Bamboo beams cradle old grapevines, and fairy lights twinkle as dusk approaches. The air is cool, the soil warm. A small ceramic bird perches nearby, as if guarding this magical corner from the ordinary world. Children find themselves sitting beside it, weaving tales of who might live inside. Adults pause, smile, and remember the stories they once believed. And the jug, once forgotten in the corner of a shed, now commands a place of honor, an altar to whimsy, resilience, and rebirth. For in the smallest space, a nook beneath a pergola in a yard no wider than a stride, imagination flowers. And in the oldest object, worn by time, beauty grows anew. Here, the garden becomes more than color or composition. It becomes a memory made manifest, a story carved in clay, and a whisper that even the broken can be beautiful, if only they are given the chance to bloom. Once forgotten in the corner of a shed, rust spreading like slow fire across its surface, the old drum had long outlived its industrial purpose. But in this garden, where stories bloom as much as flowers, it found its second life painted in shades of seafoam and memory. On a tiny stone patio tucked behind a white cottage wall, the drum now stands proud. Its surface, once corroded, is smoothed and coated with gentle brushstrokes, curling waves, distant sails, starfish clinging to imagined rocks. A drift of coral pink and ocean blue dances along the rim, and the faded script of its past life peeks through like treasure just beneath the sand. Topping the drum, a burst of green and blue tumbles outward. Trailing sedum and deep violet lobelia cascade like seaweed in the tide. Around its base, marigolds cluster like golden shells, and chrysanthemums in cream and plum glow in the fall sunlight. The patio is small, barely room for a chair and a pot or two. Yet here, by transforming trash into beauty, the garden breathes bigger than its boundaries. The drum becomes not just art, but anchor, a grounding object that whispers of coastal breezes and barefoot mornings, even in a landlocked backyard. Children trace the waves with their fingers. Guests pause to admire the detail, the depth, the sheer delight of something once forgotten turned into something unforgettable. A nearby bamboo pergola offers shade, while strings of tiny lanterns sway above like stars over the sea. It doesn't matter that the garden is small. It matters that it sings. And in its chorus, the drum holds its note, deep, weathered, and true. Because here in the garden, we remember that beauty is not always born from newness. Sometimes, it rises from rust, from ruin, from the echo of ocean dreams painted on a barrel of iron. All it takes is vision, and a little paint. Down the winding path of a garden no wider than a breath, beauty walks with intention. Here, where every inch is precious, the border becomes more than a boundary. It becomes a frame for the portrait of blooming life. And what frames it? Not stone, not cement, but bamboo and bottles, reimagined with grace. Slender bamboo stakes stand in gentle rhythm, their pale golden hue echoing the softness of fall sunlight. Between them, inverted plastic bottles, painted in a palette of cottage garden joy, add splashes of color like a string of garden pearls. Mint green, blush pink, powder blue, they shine not with plastic glare, but with charm, their surfaces hand-brushed with floral accents and botanical swirls. The path they outline is narrow and curved, made of old cobbles softened by moss. Along its edge, chrysanthemums gather like a chorus in golden yellow and rust. Asters peek through in violet bursts, and marigolds hum with bees. The entire garden pulses with late-season life. What began as trash becomes treasure. Each bottle, once discarded and dull, now stands upright like a vase for the earth itself. Each bamboo cane, once meant for support, becomes a line of poetry running through the soil. The contrast is intentional. Nature's curves meet crafted lines. Soft petals lean against the straight spines of bamboo. Even the fallen leaves join the composition, resting on the painted plastic with casual elegance. Visitors often stop at this border, unsure what they're seeing at first. Then, with a smile, they realize the beauty lies in the transformation, the turning of waste into wonder. The garden whispers, you don't need much to make something beautiful. Just a little love, and a little thought. At dusk, the bottles catch the last light like lanterns. The bamboo, etched by rain and time, stands resilient. And the garden, framed in upcycled grace, invites everyone to pause, not just to walk, but to marvel. Because even in the smallest garden, the path can lead to magic. And sometimes, the edge of that path is where the most unexpected beauty blooms. As evening folds itself gently over the backyard, the gazebo awakens, not with noise, but with glow. From its bamboo rafters hang soft, glistening forms, petals of light, suspended in delicate clusters. But these flowers did not bloom from seed. They were shaped from plastic, reborn through imagination. Each lamp began as a discarded water bottle. Clear, ordinary, forgettable. But with a touch of scissors, a swirl of pastel paint, and a spark of creativity, they became lanterns, each one unique, shaped like lilies, bellflowers, or falling stars. Inverted and hollowed, fitted with warm LED lights, they cast a gentle luminescence, like fireflies frozen mid-flight. The gazebo itself is small, nestled into the curve of a tiny patio bordered by chrysanthemums and asters. Nearby, marigolds nod in the night air, their colors deepening in the dusk. The garden doesn't sleep, it softens. And in that softness, the glow from the lamps creates enchantment. Families gather here. A teacup on the table, children tracing the glow of the lamps with their eyes. The world outside may still be rushing, but within this dome of upcycled beauty, time feels slower, sweeter. Even the breeze seems to pause, catching the light in the curved plastic petals. Each lamp, though made from trash, feels precious. There's no trace of labels or logos, only soft gradients, hints of lavender, pale gold, sage green. The plastic seems to breathe, transformed by color and purpose. No one would guess their past. They belong here now, among flowers and laughter. And that is the wonder of this place. Not just that it's beautiful, but that it's possible. That a garden light need not come from a store. That charm can hang from a beam, painted with your own hands, born from what once had no future. As the last light fades from the sky, the inverted bottles shine brighter, silent stars under a wooden canopy. They don't just light the space. They define it. In this garden, small doesn't mean limited, and trash doesn't mean lost. It just means, not finished yet. In a quiet corner of a small garden, where space is precious and detail matters, something ancient rises from the soil, not planted, not manufactured, but sculpted by time itself. A tree root, gnarled and glorious, stands like a forgotten relic rediscovered. It twists and curves, each knot a memory, each bend a whisper of the forest it once called home. But here, far from the woods, it becomes something new. Polished by hand and nestled among fall's richest blooms, the root is more than decor, it's a soul. Surrounding it, marigolds flutter like golden fire, asters reach upward like prayers, and Japanese anemones soften its edges with delicate elegance. The root casts shadows that dance in the afternoon light, and when the breeze shifts, it almost seems to move, like an old spirit breathing again. Children imagine it as the spine of a sleeping dragon. Artists see an abstract sculpture. Gardeners see nature's resilience. And everyone pauses, just a little longer than expected. There is no symmetry here. No perfection. Only truth, the kind that comes from years buried in earth, now offered up as a gift to the sky. Moss grows in its curves. A feather rests in one hollow. A trail of ants explores its crevices like pilgrims on a sacred path. And yet, it is entirely still. Rooted again, not in need, but in intention. Beside it, a simple path winds through chrysanthemums and sedum. A pergola offers gentle shade. The root becomes the garden's heart, a silent center that radiates strength and serenity. It is the kind of beauty that can't be bought. It must be found, dug up, carried home with muddy hands and wild hope. It must be cleaned, respected, and placed with care. And once it's there, it transforms everything around it, not loudly, but completely. Because a root is not just what holds things down. It is what begins everything. And in this small patch of cultivated wilderness, the root reminds us, even in the smallest space, the deepest stories can rise again, if we're brave enough to see art where others see wood. In the embrace of a tiny patio, tucked beneath the shade of trailing vines and wooden beams, the soft murmur of water breaks the stillness. From the lip of a weathered clay jug, a silver stream spills into another, and then another, each vessel slightly askew as if frozen mid-fall. The sound is gentle, like a whispered lullaby for the garden. This is not a grand fountain. It has no marble, no sculpted lions. It is made from humble kendi, clay jugs once used for water or oil, now repurposed for something more poetic. Their surfaces are etched with time, and touched with fresh paint, moss green, earthen brown, and soft chalk white. A vine curls around the base like a ribbon. Nearby, marigolds nod in golden clusters and asters bloom in soft violet layers. In a space no wider than a doorway, the fountain transforms the atmosphere. Its rhythm is slow and steady, inviting breath to follow suit. The air smells of wet stone, flower nectar, and something older, memory, perhaps. Visitors always pause here. They dip fingers into the ceramic basin, feel the coolness of the water, the smoothness of the clay. It's a simple thing, and yet it anchors the entire garden. The sound draws birds and bees. The reflection of sky in the trickling surface catches the afternoon sun, scattering light across the pergola posts. There's magic in the motion, in the layering of time. Old jugs once held in working hands, now placed with intention and care. No longer just containers, they've become conduits. Not just for water, but for quiet, for stillness, for joy. You don't need space to build serenity. You don't need wealth to design wonder. Sometimes, you just need 3 old jugs, a bit of balance, and the belief that something simple can become something sacred. And so the fountain flows. And so the garden listens. There, nestled in the quietest edge of the garden, stands a bench unlike any other. Its base, once a rusted metal drum used for oil or scrap, now breathes with color, every curve wrapped in shards of life, broken plates, cracked tiles, shattered glass, all reborn as a vibrant mosaic of memories. This bench doesn't apologize for its past. Instead, it wears it proudly. The curve of its seat invites the body to rest, but also the soul to reflect. Each tile sings a different note, turquoise from an old teacup, amber from a bottle's base, rose from a once-loved flower pot. Together, they create a symphony of color that reflects the garden itself. It sits along the back fence, shaded by bamboo slats and the dappled light of a pergola wrapped in vines. Around its legs bloom marigolds in golden bursts, while asters and chrysanthemums form a painter's palette beneath. The scent of fallen leaves, damp earth, and chrysanthemum petals lingers in the air. It is a bench, yes. But more than that, it is a statement. It says that comfort doesn't require perfection. That beauty can rise from ruin. That trash, when seen with vision, becomes treasure. People are drawn to it. Some sit. Some simply run their fingers across the textured mosaic, reading it like Braille. Children spot tiny flowers formed in tile, hidden birds, shimmering bits of mirror. It becomes a place of pause, a photo corner, a quiet friend in the garden's embrace. And as the sun sets behind the fence, the colors catch fire, casting their hues on nearby blooms. The bench glows, not with electricity, but with story. The story of rescue, of reinvention, of choosing to see beyond rust into radiance. For in a tiny garden, every corner matters. And this bench, born of waste and wonder, proves that the boundary between trash and art is only a heartbeat and a handful of tile away. In the smallest corners of the garden, where space is limited but imagination is limitless, a wall becomes a canvas. Not for paint alone, but for color, for chaos, for character. It is the junk wall, a celebration of discarded things, reborn through whimsy and vision. Against the backdrop of a weathered fence, objects once forgotten find their voice. A broken spade becomes a sunflower petal. Bottle caps are arranged in a spiral, mimicking the curl of a chrysanthemum. Clay jug shards, each painted in bold colors or floral patterns, catch the light like fragments of stained glass. Spoons become butterflies. Pipes become stems. Crushed cans bloom into metallic roses. This isn't clutter. It's composition. Beneath this living mural, asters bloom in rich purples and whites, marigolds burst in joyful yellows, and sedum glows like amber in the fall sun. Japanese anemones nod in soft pastels, their elegance contrasting the industrial past of the wall behind them. The wall radiates warmth, not just in color, but in energy. It says, "Look closer." And when you do, you find story in every object. The wrench your grandfather once used. The old bicycle gear that carried 100 journeys. The jug that cracked during a family dinner long ago. Each piece is cleaned, repainted, and placed with care. Not one item is rusted or left dull, every surface sings with a fresh coat of life. Bold reds, ocean blues, soft moss greens, lavender and lemon. The colors echo the garden's palette but add a new rhythm, a vertical dance in a horizontal world. Visitors are drawn in. They walk the narrow path with wide eyes. Children point out their favorite shapes. Adults linger, surprised by how something so chaotic feels so complete. In a tiny yard where space cannot grow, beauty climbs. And in a world that moves too fast, this junk wall stands still, proof that with a little paint, a bit of patience, and an open heart, anything can become art. It doesn't need to match. It only needs to matter.